Hello everybody and welcome to another ARKHAM Town Hall with me and Daniel from Quick Learner. Today we're going to be talking all about the specialist cards, at least in regards to our initial thoughts about them, whether it be the design, the function, the flavor, if it was successful or not, is kind of like, we're just going to like kind of like broad strokes, have like an open dialogue about these cards. So it's going to be fun. This is ARKHAM Town Hall, so the chat's also involved. And yeah, we're just going to dive in. There's really like no just general structure. But I'm going to start by posing a question to you, Daniel. That's really, really simple. I mean, it sounds simple to me, but maybe it's not so simple to answer. But where do you kind of like fall on the vibe for these cards? How do you feel about specialist cards just generally? Not even talking about like design. Let's not start there. But just in terms of like, do they make you interested in doing deck building around some of them? Like, would you say like you're interested in the specialist cards?
Yeah, so I would say some of them. Some of them I'm really hyped about. And I kind of wonder if it has to do with them being specialist cards, or I think the card itself is just kind of cool. So, yeah, can I ask the question, like, is it based on the card, or is it based on the fact that it is specialist to as part of that issue? That's
a great question, and I guess I think the very interesting dialogue that has kind of come from these specialist cards since they've been revealed is, are they actually specialist cards, or are they just class cards that are neutral, right? Or are they just neutrals that are class cards? Because I think that's a very interesting question to also bounce off of my question to you. Let's talk about, like, for you, for me, I'll get into this, but we're going to just poke you a little bit more for this.
Love being poked.
Do you feel like the specialist cards are actually specialized, or do you think that they are just neutral cards?
I think they are. This is a non-answer. I think they're specialist cards because only some people can take them, but they feel maybe more like neutral cards or otherwise. So this is kind of an interesting question, especially going forward in the game's lifespan. Like, where do these sit when only some investigators can take them? I think that it is fun to build around these cards when you identify an investigator who can take them. But I don't think the reverse is true. I don't think you're looking to put these into your deck and then, you're playing a deck, and you've already chosen your investigator. And then later you're like, which specialist cards can I put in? I think that is not the case.
And I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I think that, like, in theory, these specialist cards just ended up being a bit too broad. Like, they're just a little bit too open, which is probably, it's both a positive and a negative. That's why, like, I wanted to see the full picture for these specialist cards before I really started to dive into them, right? And unfortunately, I don't think the full picture changed too much in regards to the thought process that this had, but it is one of the things where, like, it's understandable why they played them a little bit safe. The design team for the current design team, their design is a lot less bombastic than some of the previous designs we've had. And I think we see that to, like, the ultimate degree with these specialist cards,
Are you surprised at how many there are in the box?
Yes, it did surprise me. There's a lot of them.
There's like 30 or something. I don't. Maybe that's a crazy number, but there's something like a good chunk of the box such that the cards in class are 12, 13 or something per class. It's not too many.
Very small compared to the past. And that's actually a very interesting thing, because specialist is just like, in Magic the Gathering, each set, each cycle in Magic the Gathering, as to relate it to Arkham, has like a mechanic for that set, right? And we see that in Arkham as well. We see that with customizables. That was a cycle of cards. We had that multi-class. Like, that is also, like, in that cycle, that was, like, the mechanic of that set. And with this one, it's specialist. And, like, I'm actually kind of curious. Let's just see in comparison. I'm going to open up Edge of the Earth over here on the left side.
Sure.
And I want to see, like, with this one, I guess, like, it's funny because there's a lot of multi-class cards, right? In comparison to, because it's kind of the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But multi-class cards actually feel more open than specialist cards, right? But I guess like it actually shouldn't be too surprising. I guess it's just because with with customizable cards, those were only like 3 for each class. I was expecting a number closer to that than all the specialist cards that we got. But
I mean, there's a lot of traits, right? Part of their philosophy was to give every trait at least 1 card. I haven't crunched the numbers, but clearly some of them have more than just like 1 or 2.
yeah, Lucas in chat is saying a lot for sorcerers, right? And I actually just, honestly, I was going to say throw a dart and you'll probably hit 1 for a sorcerer, and I just put my mouse over the first one and it was for a sorcerer. Because we got Forbidden Sutra, not Cowl, Blood of Kinyan. Hey, maybe there's not... No, I guess there's the Storm Ruler, too.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how many for each of them, but I kind of wonder, like, could this have just been multi-class or even just in class? So the ones that are sorcerer, are they just mystic cards?
Yeah. And I think that is where, as we're going to get deeper into this conversation and we start like poking at the cards individually, I think specialist cards are the most interesting when you approach them from the standpoint of not, is this just a mystic card, or is this a mystic card that a rogue can take and wants to play? Like, I think people were calling me crazy, but I think for the Blood of Kinyan, for example, you could build a sick-ass Tony Morgan where this is just another kill spell, because he actually ultimately has a lot of ways to empty his hand slots instantly. He could play Joey the Rat to sell off items when a gun is empty. He also could play like Act of Desperation. And to me, that opens this up a lot more than just the idea of, oh, I'm Agnes and I'm not using my hand slots, might as well get some snake arms, right?
Yeah. So that's the dream. I totally agree that that's what the design should be like. It could be open to many different classes and do something interesting with each of them, which is kind of like multi-class, but still more narrow. It's kind of pointing you to a couple of directions. What I'm not sure about, and maybe it'll come across in our discussion, was that a successful attempt with the majority of these cards?
Yes, I think that's a great question. I also feel like that due to the nature of the design on these cards, they treated them a bit too safe, you know? I feel like with some of these, they could have swung a bit more to the fences. Like, obviously we don't know what's coming in the next cycle. They probably have some ideas of some cards that are coming out, right? But I think that ultimately the idea of cards being something that you have to play is gone from Arkham at this point, right? And the people who are going to play like that, that's their choice, right? Like, you see a lot of groups stop, like, self-correct with Cyclopean Hammer and even now Runic Axe, right? Like, those cards are just, like, so powerful, and there's now a lot of viable other options that I think even if a card was very, very good, it would still see play in, like, people would still play other cards as well. I think they wouldn't really, like, squeeze them out of the card pool, right?
Yeah. Although I wonder what these, when you squeeze investigators out of the card pool, how many of them are still viable, right?
Yeah. And I like, that's like the hard part of this too, right? Let's get rid of these multi-class cards. I'm sick of looking at them. Is that... So actually, before I get to this, I want to talk about Holy Helicopter, because I think this is also a good point here. So I think playing it safe part is more about how they cost them XP-wise, not the raw power level of the effects. I would argue it's both. It's both, right? Like, if this card, like, I don't know, one of them, like Michael Archibald McVeigh is a good example, right? Yeah, if this guy cost, like, 3 experience, that'd be good. But I think at the same time, we could also say, like, how do you make this a 5 XP card? I think it goes both ways, right? Like, it's a two-way street. Like, yes, this card is low X, it's like seems higher XP than it is, but like it could be exactly that. Take off XP or make the card do more to make it balance to that XP cost, right? So I think it's like a two-way street.
I often ask with some of these cards, like, what are they trying to tell me to do with this card, right? What is the designer's intent for making this fit into either a campaign or into a deck. And some of these, maybe just this guy, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What are we trying to do with this guy? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And to go to the other point that I was going to talk about like the investigators. Like, let's say for example, they wanted to like boost up an investigator like that was lower power level, right? But let's just say there's also an investigator in the same traits that's very powerful. Like, now you're just like not actually solving that problem, right? Like, unless we get focus cards that are like Jim Culver only, you know, and it's just like you get like you draw 3 cards a turn, you know, it's like stuff like that where it's like that's where things get a little bit like hard to figure out the level for it. So I understand that it's not really a solution to fixing that, because exactly what, like, it's just gonna like everyone's gonna rise to the top, right?
Yeah. When you draw a skull token, read resolution 1.
Let's go. Wait a minute, everyone's killed. No.
That's what happens when you play with Mystic cards, right? There's always a little backlash. You don't know what R1 is.
Exactly, right? It could be anything. All right, so we talked a little bit about because we talked a little bit about the things that were misses, but do you have any things that just like on the specialist cards that are hits for you that you actually like enjoy and think turned out pretty good?
I think the skill cards are quite interesting. I don't know why it worked out that way. I think all of them are playable, and maybe in certain decks. There's a couple of interesting events. I think by and large, they're good. I think the ones that we got from the preview season were weird. And the ones that ended up being in the box filled in a lot of gaps where I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool.
Man, I'm very curious to see like how they select cards for preview season, because it's a balancing thing where you don't want to spoil everything in the box, right? But like, even if we saw like Stormblade earlier, like for example, I think like the Mauser was a good card to spoil, right?
Oh, why, thank you.
But then they got like Archibald McVeigh in the initial article, and everyone was like, huh? This guy could have been a box spoiler and it would be okay. And not even to mention like because Blood of Thoth was spoiled, right? This is not a video where we're gonna rag on Blood of Thoth, right? But like,
yeah, so I would say like by and large the assets are a little bit more confusing to me than the events for whatever reason. Maybe this has to do with the whole playing it safe with this mechanic, or just the design team, where assets in general are more impactful because they are used, of course, more than once, more easily. And I find them to be overall harder to figure out how to get a lot of value out of compared to what we're used to playing with.
Yeah.
But I found the events and skills to be much more interesting. So again, maybe that's a balancing issue with them being specialist cards. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, I look at most of these specialist cards on like the asset side, and like I see what I can do with them, but I haven't really looked at like, again, who's the one that seems strange for this to work with, right? And like that's when I'm going to start being a little bit more like into it. I'm going to see if I can find just on the side that breakdown as someone did of who can play what card. Even though like it's a great handy chart and it's a little bit of a nightmare to read.
There's a chart that was old. I think it was after the spoiled cards, but then it hasn't been updated.
Yeah.
So
that's the latest
it's
one right there.
Yeah. But
here's a 1 month ago, but no, that's still not new enough. Yeah, no.
So yeah, what do you think about that whole idea of without an aid or Arkham build or something, just looking at a card, can you tell who can take it? Are you getting better at the traits now?
No, I'm not. And honestly, like, I don't really like put that in my. At this point now, I'm turning 36 this year. My brain doesn't have the space for that. I'm like, that's just something that I'll look up, right? I think it's like what we were saying earlier, and I don't think this is the fault of the designers or like the art for like the even like the templators. I think that this is not something that can easily be put into information. This is something where instead I'm going to either start with this in mind, right? Where I'm going to be like, I want to build around, I don't know, this sick ass storm ruler, right? Like this is the weapon I want to be playing with in this deck, right? Or alternatively, I'm going to, as I upgrade and I get to that point where I don't know what to put in, I'm going to be like, okay, what are my traits? I'm going to flip to my specialist section of my binder and just go through it that way and be like, yeah, this seems fun. I can run this here, right?
I think the sound support's the only thing that Carolyn and Vincent got.
Yeah, because they're pretty limited on their traits, right?
I think they're just medic, and they don't even really want this. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah, she's just medic. And he's just medic.
Which is okay. Like, I don't think the game needs to be balanced around everyone gets, yeah, they're just medic. Everyone gets something fantastic or something, but it's just ironic for this one in particular. And I kind of like the card that they have very little interest in it because it doesn't proc their ability at all. With
that said, though, if you are a support, redundancy is a good way to like win the game. So like, well, it doesn't proc their ability. Like it still can be a way. Like I actually find like the best, for example, the best Vincent Lee decks are selfish, right? Like he is trying to get all the on the mends and healing for himself. So like a sound support now, like it changes to like, okay, I'm going to do this to you. But this is how you're going to get it. And you're not going to get my on the mends because those are too busy going to me. Cause I'm going to play like Jessica, Gurish, you know, like all these things that like already proc for it. Like Karen's a little bit strange because she actually does feel like a support. But yeah, it is the only thing they got, and it's that balance of like trying to figure out like how many people get what, you know, like, and then also
and I think
like
that's impossible, right? The game wasn't designed around this idea in the first place, so you get some, I don't want to say weird traits on different investigators, but this mechanic is new. It wasn't meant to be this way, and I think that's okay to explore this without having to cater to, I don't know, balance across the entire card pool of like 50 plus investigators, right?
Yes, yeah. And I'm gonna kind of bounce off of that, and also what Holy Helicopter in chat is saying. I have the assumption the designers themselves don't want to get weighed down going forward by what specialist card who can take, and that is probably why they played these safe. I'm gonna actually go like a step above that, a step beyond that. I actually think even if they didn't play them safe, I don't think they should have cared too much about it. Because also, I think it's actually very easy to just cross-check it. Like, you're like, what trait should we give this guy? I don't know, why don't we give him, like, Believer? And then they can just, like, go to their design file and be like, what are the Believer cards? Oh, this is fine, you know? Right? I feel like they should have got creative with cards that could be used. Bust with giving us, like, Tony who breaks rogue guns. Instead of using it to get creative with the cards that could be busted, look at given, like... Yeah, so, like, that's the thing we were talking about earlier. Like, is it a problem if specialist cards just make, like, the strong stronger? If it also makes the weaker stronger, right? Like, is that actually an issue? Or is that just, like, spike design philosophy cascading into other parts of card discussion, right? Like, is it actually a problem if Tony gets stronger? Because the reality is Tony gets stronger whenever a weapon is released, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to not make him stronger. The only thing that I think made sense recently was anything that uses his numbers that he doesn't want to use, like Dirty Fighting, right? That was a good rogue card that doesn't really mess with Tony too much. So I think you asked me the question, but I'll ask you maybe the version of the question you asked me at the beginning. Like, do these feel like specialist cards to you? Whatever that means to you before having looked at the cards.
That's a great question.
Like, if you're sold on this idea, like they're advertising it, or you're telling your buddies about the mechanic, and you say there's this cool set of cards, they're called specialist cards, and then they look at them and they're like, okay, this is a specialist card. I feel like I'm a specialist at doing this thing, whatever that means. Do they feel that way, or do some of them feel that way more than others?
I feel like I'm gonna go a little bit deep on this. We're gonna like start to I'm gonna get a little bit meta. I think that they chose the wrong word.
Yeah.
Because I think specialist is I mean, from a content creator standpoint, specialist has kind of been already codified from the community, right? Where a specialist is someone who focuses on their role of getting clues or fighting, right? So they're specializing in those things. And them calling it specialist is kind of a miss from a naming convention standpoint, because it the cards don't feel hyper focused, right? The cards are just like, the cards are neutral cards that are, okay, no, they're not actually neutral cards. They're designed with the with the levels of neutral card balance, but these are actually a new class. Like, these are just like a new class card, right? But the classes are limited to traits, right? So it's like the same sort of thing. But because we're looking at specialist, in our minds, I think the connection is we look at this card and being like, if you are a hunter, you are going to be able to take advantage of this card no matter what, because that's your specialization, right? And that, I think, unfortunately, is just like not the case.
Yeah, so yeah, go ahead.
So to answer your question, I would not, like, if I'm going to talk to, like, I'm actually bringing another friend into Arkham, and we're hopefully going to be recording some videos soon. But if I was, like, going to be like, you have to, like, these cards are neat. It's a new mechanic called Specialist, and, like, you can really, like, feel yourself be, like, focus on your trait as opposed to just your class or your ability, and that's really cool. Instead, what I would say is there's these cool new build-around cards that you might be able to play, or you might look at them and be like, why would I ever want to play this? You know, like, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. So I think Holy Helicopter is asking, is there anything that makes these cards specialists to say that word anywhere? Not on the cards, but in the rulebook, they define it as this is the special frame, which is neutral but not. And I was talking to you before stream started. I was like, hey, was there anything in the rulebook or in their announcement article that said what they thought this word meant? And the answer is no. They just said special cards are the ones that can only be taken by investigators with certain traits. And they didn't give much else beyond that. To me, like, going into it, I would have thought that it means that among every investigator that has a certain trait, there's something that they are more interested in doing, that this is giving them a boost to do that above and beyond what the class cards could do, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have hunter across, 2 or 3 classes or something, then here's a card that is maybe better than the options you get in class.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's not that.
Yeah. So something that I'm very curious about is, what if, like, let's just do like a what if, a thought experiment. Mm-hmm. I love doing these, but chat always hates when I do this. Going back to me saying all assets should have had slots. They don't like that. What if every specialist card only had one trait on it? So instead of this being like blessed, cursed, or sorcerer, right? What if it was like, this is just for sorcerers? Because then they could have, like, looked at all the sorcerers and been like, what do they want? And it could have been like something like that. So it would have been like more specialized to that trait, because I think when it kind of is just split between all the traits, it's kind of a whiff. Like, a good example, I think, Library Pass. I think Library Pass is probably one of the most successful designs when you look at Miskatonic and Scholar, right? Like, yes, there is only there are some Miskatonics, like when I was looking at a Rita deck that I was building, and I was like, why would I want this? And, like, there's going to be some misses because of that, right? But, like, I think that, like, this one is so focused and so specialized that it actually feels like the best specialist card, right?
Like, some of them have 2, and I think that's good. 3 is kind of pushing it. At least one has 4 on their heels.
Oh, is it on their heels? Yeah.
There might be another one, but it's like, okay. I actually kind of like the theme on that one a lot. Mm-hmm. Because I can see in my mind, like, why all 4 of those traded investigators might belong to this idea of chasing after enemies and discovering clues or dealing damage. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of my favorite cards for that reason. But at the same time, I don't think the other ones always match up so well. I don't know. So yeah, answer your question. What if there's only one? Then we would not have as many traits probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe just more cards. I don't know what they would have done, but I think that would have been more interesting.
Yes.
But when you immediately have a second trait, then you say, okay, well, what do these investigators all have in common? Do they have anything in common? So I'll just like sort of talk about the. I know, unfortunately, you didn't get a specialist card to preview, right?
Nope.
Yeah. I got the Mauser, and Hunter Veteran Warden is interesting because you look at this and you say, who am I going to play this in? You know, your fighters, right? But then you have a couple of weird cases like Father Mateo is a warden for some reason, and Dexter is a veteran, so he can take this too. And those are a little bit off the wall. You're like, okay, that's kind of neat. You can do this. It's strange.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get some cool stuff happening when you have a little bit of out of archetype investigators who can take a specialist card.
Yeah, and I think that's like a good example of why hyper focused, only like one trait per card would actually I think it would make the cards more generically playable. But I think, again, my thesis on specialist cards, and I'm very curious to revisit this topic in like a year from now, is where do these cards shine when they wouldn't have been able to, right? Like, again, Father Mateo with the Mauser is an interesting thing that you can do that is actually also probably pretty good.
So the flip side of that is, what about the ones that are the on archetype? So Hunter and Veteran, this is getting you, Leo Anderson and Tony Morgan, etc. Why would I take this in that archetype? Because in those investigators, because I really want to. I really want that to be able to take these cards that are for me based on trait and not have it be outshadowed by the in-class options. So like, why? I'm not going to say like just take flamethrower every time. That's just better. But really, the question is, does this make sense for those that can take it rather than just the weird off examples, right?
So I think the Mauser, I think the card is actually like good enough that it does make sense in those ones, right? Because like we know Ornate Bow is good, right? And the idea of Ornate Bow is you play it in anyone that has high foot that you want to kill things with, where your like foot is higher than your fist, right? And I think this one is just like, I'm going to eliminate enemies that show up. Like that's how I'm going to do this. Like, and then there's also like quiet synergies that I think, again, I'm going to be a little bit of classic snarky Justin here, but I feel like people have judged too quick on some of these things. And when we see these, I think there's going to be a lot of quiet synergies where these things pop up. Like just off the top of my head, right? Tony Morgan, he has extra actions. So like he's going to be more efficient at loading this gun than other people. Mark Harrigan draws cards and has Guardian synergy that he can use to take advantage of maybe provoking an attack of opportunity to replenish a shell on this, right? So it's like one of those things that like he can then do like other things that go with it. So I think there's like quiet little things that make these cards playable. I also do think that the design team are kind of a bit more Johnny focused right now. And I do think like just in their like intentions and gameplay. And I think we actually see a little bit more like combo oriented card designs as opposed to, I do think that Maxine was a bit more spiky in her design tendencies. Just like they're all good. Everyone's good at like designing, across all of the spectrum of card wants and player desires and all that. But like every designer has their thing that they are drawn to. It's like unavoidable. And I think this team is a little bit more on the fun combo side instead.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, like, especially since we got a lot of these cards early without the whole box. So, what readies assets? I guess it's Bulwark now. We can think about that.
Yeah.
Although that doesn't really work that well because you still need to use the action to. You use that to ready it after you've replenished it. Okay, yeah. So it still kind of could work. That's neat. So now you can do that in the Guardian class, and you might not have immediately seen that just by looking at the investigators who could take it before.
Yeah. And I mean, also the real answer is also this card just like nukes anything. So, like,
seems good.
Yeah, it seems good, right? It seems good.
Yep.
And then also, yes, I don't know when they were like they had the news, but I do think that they also had some intention that cards would eventually rotate out, right? I think it's going to affect Arkham less than it does Marvel Champions still, because Arkham is a lot slower in its release cadence, but that is relevant, right? Like, we need like a big gun, and we're probably going to get like a big gun every like 3 years like this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that some old cards that become specialist cards that they were released today? I think that's too hard of a what if for me to actually put into practice, just because every card, like most of the cards, apart from like maybe a few exceptions, all feel like they fit. And I think realistically, all these cards, I think when they get enough time, we're gonna start feeling like they fit, you know? Like, we're going to be like, oh, this is a cool thing you can do with this card, with this person that no one else can do. And I think that's when specialist cards are going to get just generally more interesting, when we start making those discoveries of, hey, this is a neat thing that only this person can do.
So I'll answer that question too in kind of a funky way. I thought about that too as soon as we saw Bound for the Horizon. Mm-hmm. As okay, here's what Pathfinder probably could look like in a world where, you know, it actually costs 2 XP and isn't just free move all the time. But also the fact that it's limited to a few different types of investigators keeps it from being a staple in anyone who has access to Seeker. So I mean, this is me trying to come down hard on some of the cards that feel imbalanced to me still, that I think they can work okay in an environment where they're specialist cards, where you want Ursula or Monterey Jack or someone to use that ability often, because that's part of what their shtick is, but without making it a card that is their signature card.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would say I think there are a few things that I would rather see that way. Track shoes maybe is another one like that. I'm not sure exactly what the traits should be, but these cards that feel like second signatures probably could be designed as a specialist card.
Yeah, no, that definitely is a nice answer for that. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm just doing something on. All right. I feel like that specialist cards, if they have too many, would make organizing a collection a nightmare. All right, here's my advice for anyone trying to organize a collection. Just keep them by class and level. Don't worry about anything else. Mm-hmm. Every time, unless you like actively sorting, don't worry about it. That's my advice. Like, unless you like every time, like whenever I have like my wall of Blu-rays and I'm sorting them alphabetically and I get a new movie and I love moving all the movies down, unless you like that thing for your cards, don't worry about it. Just like put them all in by level and then specialist by level.
I do it by asset, event, skill still, but there's such an imbalance with the number of assets anyway that it hardly matters, right? You're still thumbing through.
Yeah, and even if you're doing it by like asset, event, skills, like don't go like deeper than that. Don't be like alphabetical asset. Just like put them together like that. Like, you know, like that's just makes it easier. Holy Helicopter, what about massively agreed upon bonkers non-taboo card, double or nothing key stuff if they were specials without their taboos? So actually that's a great question, and you probably already know the answer, because something that I've said is I wish that double or nothing would come back as traded to criminal only, right? I feel like that is cool, and I think that that's a very neat design thing to explore, which is just that like using traits to limit cards as opposed to what specialist is, which I mean, like, it is to limit cards, but because they're so open, it doesn't feel like a limit, at least at this point. But like, I think that would be a nice solution to some of those OP cards. Like, I think double or nothing could come back, especially now that it's going to Legacy, and just be like criminal only. I would kill for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what my answer was before about Pathfinder. So I would be in favor of that. I think you still could do some tweaking. Like Kiwi's is still kind of weird at 5 XP, and I think it's strange at 10 XP too. But I think they could reasonably have a more powerful card that's traded appropriately to keep it, limited. So actually, to that point of like which cards feel like they're, I don't know, more appropriate. Like I look at motivational speech, this level 4 one. I think this is a really cool card. And I don't even care who can take it. I know Charlie King can take it because he's there on the art.
That's the rule.
Yeah. Like, who are the performers who want this? I don't know. I mean, I guess Patrice could put the Summon Hounds into play again for free, but whatever. I just look at this as a really cool Charlie Kane card, and I don't even know if it needs to be specialist. It just needed to say Charlie Kane only. I think that's the reason why it is specialist. They couldn't give him a 0 to 2 card. Like, this is not a level 0 to 2 card. But then always having him be able to take it is pretty sick. So I think this was like a winner of a design here. Yeah, Jim can take it. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's one of those things where it's like exactly that, right? Like, it kind of like for those investigators that already have like a limited card pool, something like motivational speech is interesting, because if this was a Guardian level 4 card, Charlie is just looking at it like womp womp, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to like talk about any other individual cards?
I think we should just kind of like poke at the individual cards, and we can see like how successful they are. I mean, not in terms of power level. I don't want to get too bogged down, and I'm saying this mostly to myself because I feel like I might bring it up. But like, do these cards feel like they are worth like exploring in the traits that are here? Like, would you want to do something with them, right? And we might as well just go top to bottom, left to right, nice and simple.
Sure.
Library Pass. So I gushed a bit about this one earlier. What do you think of Library Pass?
Level 1 or 5? Or
let's start with level 1, yeah.
I think it's fine. I think this is a reasonable analog of other cards that we've seen before in Seeker. I don't know if anyone takes this outside of Seeker. You mentioned like Rita before. Are there other scholars that really could take this, or is this really just
I feel like this is a good time for me to get like Arkham Build open, and I can start looking up traits while we discuss them too. Let me look up Scholar.
I think there's some aspect of it that does that, like who can take this card or something.
Oh, does it actually say that on the card?
Maybe. I think so.
I mean, you know what? Arkham Build has everything, so it probably already has this. Wow, it already has my SIN number too. Yeah, it has who can take it. Okay. No, but I wanted to just see Scholar. I think that's a little bit more.
Sure. Right. Okay, Kohaku, Agatha, the other, the Mystic version can take it.
Yeah. So otherwise it's like pretty much all, like, Kohaku would definitely be able to explore some stuff here. Oh, I got rid of you. 1 second.
Oh no. Back in the void.
There we go. You are back. Okay.
Okay, so what does this do for him? It basically, you can attach your signature. Takes no slots up. And then you get rid of it? No, that seems bad.
I mean, like, well, there's other, like, tomes that, like, you can also, like, find through. You can, like, tome cycle, right? Like, there's the Abyssal tome. There is...
yeah, that's true.
There's also... I mean, because he can also play Scroll of Secrets, right? So, like, there's that kind of, like, combo-oriented stuff, too.
Okay, so stupid question here. Like, are you sold by this based on the one investigator outside of class who can take it? Or Agatha, I guess, too.
So, yeah, that, like, because that's a... I'm actually... You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get Arkham Bill... No, because then I get rid of you when I do that. I was going to say, because I can't see the cards. I can zoom in a bit. So that's interesting, because I feel like this Library Pass is good for the reasons that I was saying that was good for the opposite reason that I was saying other cards, specialist cards, were going to be good, right? Which is that it's better in the splash class, right? But I think this one is just such a powerful card. Like, I think like when everyone saw Library Pass, we had expectations painted for us for specialist cards, right? Because it's like, that's a very strong tome effect, and Miskatonic investigators can take advantage of it, right? Again, people could be like, maybe this should just be a Seeker class. So then is the problem that, like, Rita and Kohaku, do they not do enough, right, to make that work?
I mean, I guess my argument would be I hate to have these be specialist cards just because one other investigator that may, you may or may not have in your collection, right?
Yeah.
Can use this to any effect. I feel like this isn't what I want to see out of a specialist card, in my opinion. This is a seeker card, but if they're using it to say not all seekers can play this, I mean, that's another question. Who can't play this?
Yeah.
Out of the seekers. I mean, you get Mandy, you get Amanda, Norman, Kate, Harvey, Daisy, Lucius. They're all Miskatonic or Scholar.
I do suppose Norman does make a case for it because he also is actually a mystic, right? So like he's another one. Like, so if he is he going to be able to take advantage of it in different ways?
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting there a little bit, but
I think like the big problem is that seeker investigator design is so flat. Like it's so flavorfully dull. And I think that that's kind of like just the consequence of that, where like every seeker is the one with the book because like that's what they do, right?
So going back to what I said earlier, and now I feel like I'm making arguments on both sides, but that's just our discussion here. So maybe this is a win because it feels like the investigators who go to the library, as Lucas is saying, can take this, and not all seekers can. So I don't know. Joe Diamond, I guess, can't, and I don't think he cares, but maybe not that much. But okay, now this makes the people who are good at the book are better at the book.
Yeah, and also when I'm very and to echo this too, I'm also curious. I think that like say for example, if this was a seeker card, you'd only play it in Daisy, right? I'm curious if other people play this, because if this ends up just being Daisy, I think this card ultimately failed. But if other investigators start to play it as well, then maybe there's a reason that it's specialized too, right? Like not even just that, like even if they are a seeker, I will actually give it like more credit if it is just not Daisy. Because if it's a seeker card that says Tome, like for example, Abigail Foreman, everyone just plays Daisy, right? So it's like, I feel like there's a little bit of like of a box that people are in for that kind of thing.
That's true. I bet you these are discussions they had in-house, and I'm starting to see why this is a difficult mechanic to try to pull off.
Yeah. What about Schaffner's? I think Schaffner's is actually pretty legit with this card too.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. Rita wants to pull Schaffner's out of the library.
I mean, at the same time too, let's just say for example you do Schaffner's, right? Oh shit. Okay, let's see. Is this enough? Does it work this way? Let's find out. If you empty Schaffner's and it's discarded from library pass, it's no longer the attached asset, so it'll go into your discard pile, right?
Just leave one resource there, I guess.
No, but what if you scavenge it back into your hand and then just get 5 free money every turn?
Okay. Yeah, you can do that.
I think that is actually it, right? Like that actually is very playable for a team, like a team of 4. Just being like, I'm gonna like get my 1 clue a turn, succeed by 2, manage enemies, but I'm also giving 5 resources to the table like every turn. Like, like yeah, it falls apart if someone doesn't use it. But I imagine also as well, it takes up no slots. Let me look at those. What are those new cards here? Let me just grab this over here. Drowned City,
Book
please.
of War or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone take that? Parallel Daisy, I guess.
Sir, I have to see these cards. At least 1 hand slot. It takes up no slots. Attached asset takes up no slots. Okay, so it cancels out that. At least 1 hand slot. Okay, because I was just seeing like if you had other ways you could get rid of it, but this I imagine the library pass overrides the hand slot on the card for those effects. So you can't do it like that. But I mean like
Joey the Rat.
Joey the Rat.
I don't think that works with anyone who can take it, but
no, but like that's kind of like the things that could happen with this, right?
So, do these specialist cards, on purpose or just by the design, block off some of these cool interactions we're thinking about, right? Because you can imagine, so Joe can't take this, right? So maybe he would want it with Book of War, but he can't. This idea of like Joey the Rat, like if this were a little more open, then, you know, maybe you could take it in Trish or something. I don't know. Like it's a push-pull here, right? Because you can't, if part of the fun of the game is exploring as many options as you can, and then sometimes it's the designer's job to constrain it a bit. I don't know if these work in the right direction that I'm personally in favor of in some of these, but I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think, yes, it's both good and bad that these restrictions exist, because restrictions do breed creativity. It's also bad because, again, like it is like a limiting factor as the designers are doing, but it's also like their goal, right? But I think ultimately there's enough to discover that I think these, like, I mean, I think there's enough to discover that already exists in other parts of the cards that you'd be like, okay, I can't do that with Joey the Rat and Library Pass, but what could I do with Joey the Rat instead, right? And I think, honestly, this Rita thing is actually, like, I'm considering that as an actual, like, I might bring that to this Patreon game day coming up.
You should do it. That sounds like fun. Breaking Entering 2 or something? Is that your way of getting the scavenging happening?
Yeah. It's a lot of pieces to get together, but that's what combo decks are, right?
And you've never had a problem assembling pieces in a Patreon game day, right?
Never. No, never. Yeah, let's, before we just did too long on this, because we want to try to get through all these cards and not take too long. But Sacred Oath.
So I was thinking about this one earlier today. It feels like a really weird version of Protective Gear in that it cancels 3 things. Freight oriented, I guess, with the treacheries.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool. Everyone I know kind of dumped on it for being 5 XP.
You get 3 cards for that.
You get 3 cards for it, right? I mean, if you want 3 cards for this effect in your deck, then sure. I'm usually not a fan of these kinds of effects because I'd rather it all be in 1 card rather than have to find all the pieces.
Yes, it's a big, what is it called? Empower Self problem.
Yeah. As far as the who can take it thing, I think it's okay, right? People always...
I think it's actually pretty legit across the board for this. Like,
yeah, I think this is an okay... Yeah,
Kelvin,
Amina can do it.
Diana, Patrice Preston, like, these are all people who want these cards. There's also Kohaku and like Rex, but like I look at all those and I'm like, yeah, these are all characters that I would want to cancel or have like Mythos protection for. So I think that all makes sense.
I'd love to see it at 4 XP, but I think it's okay. I'd like to try it out and see how it plays.
Yeah, and also I think the flavor of this one works really well for it being a specialist card too. All of these kind of make sense for me.
Yes, I love this for that. Yeah.
Archibald McVeigh.
What hasn't been said about this guy?
So this guy kind of gets screwed by Seeker's warped ally power level, where the level 0 already gives you +1 book for 4. He soaks like a machine. He could have been 3 and 3, I think. Again, we're gonna go like the thing. I guess the question is,
assistant reporter scholar.
Yeah, so we got Agatha, Amanda, Carson, Daryl, Hank, Kate, Kohaku, Lucius, Amandi, Min, and Rex's.
Okay.
Remember, people said let's wait for when they show support for Archibald. You're not gonna like to hear me say this, Helicopter. But like, what if there is still more to come for him in the future, right? Like, it's one of those things that, like, I'm gonna wager that yes, this guy is probably a bit overcosted, but I mean, like, this guy is free, right? He's a free ally if you're playing in the Secret and Insight deck, and not to mention there is the new Enraptured. That's an emergency cache for free, right? I think that, like, he is overcosted for sure. We got trapped in the power level conversation. I think anyone who can... I'm going to try to steer this back. I think that, like... Amanda can potentially make some good use out of him. Just because of that new Enraptured.
So
and
I
then,
like the idea of this one being across like assistant for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know about reporter. I'm not sure what this guy lectures on. Maybe he's a journalism professor or something. And scholar maybe. But I like looking at across the folks who can do this. Like insights are pretty common cross class. Like even in Survivor, you can do this in Daryl or Hank, play some of those new events that we just got. I think that's reasonable. Carson, I think, can take this too, right?
Yeah, he can.
So I think that part to me is good. Power level, different story. But I think it makes sense that this could be a specialist card for those different investigators. It does crowd out, is crowded out by existing options in that card pool, but, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, most of my issues with him come down to just power level, but at the same time, I'm not going to be surprised with the way the Arkham works. If I put him in my deck and build around him, I'm suddenly like, oh, I can just pay for everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is just the economy, and if you don't get him, you have cards to draw him. But yeah, I like his specialist design, in terms of who can take him and what his card does for that. Not looking at the numbers on the card, of course.
Mm-hmm. You know it has secrets on it?
What is secrets on it?
Grimm's Fairy Tale?
No. It does. It does, doesn't it?
Anyway.
It really does, doesn't it? So let me just see. You mean Hank Sampson?
Yeah.
Insight Grimm's Fairy Tales? Wow. Walter Fitzpatrick. So Civic Silver Twilight Socialite. You get +1 skill value while parlaying. At successfully parlay, exhaust him, gain 1 resource. So he's basically just like Dr. Milan for parlay decks. I think this one also works really well as a specialist card.
Yeah.
I feel like specialist is already so focused that having like the payoff be focused fits, I
agree. I think this one's also a good one. So you're looking at Alessandra mostly. She likes so many other allies though, but I can see a good deck that this fits into for sure.
Charlie as well, right? Like I think Charlie would he could play the parlay stuff pretty good because he could get like all the important pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess it's gonna matter as well. Like, do they keep putting in parlay cards to support the archetype, or are they just going to like stop at a certain point, right, with the rotation in mind?
No idea.
Here's an interaction.
I think they're fun to have, so I hope they keep them around.
I agree. Also, for an interaction, as like also seeing the specialist cards come together, because I think that's also when you start seeing decks shape up, is like specialist cards that can be synergized between them, but using library pass and secrets to just use it as a free battery to gain money for the turn, like a fast emergency cash as well, right?
Okay.
I think that's also something. I think that's a really good shout. You already basically talked about Bound for the Horizon and why I think the design for this one's also really good. I think that this one there's a reason I'd want to play this in everybody as well, and it being not so open is nice for the specialist card. And then it also makes me think, okay, improvised weapon Tony Morgan,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like anytime someone gets a weighted discard, it could potentially open them up to new things, right? Which I think is very relevant.
They should have had the Yithian art on this, because that's the thing you can do in the City of Archives, right? All those locations, discard and move.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Should have just had that one location, like the hallways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Forbidden Sutra. Blessed, Curse, and Sorcerer. So I think this is the one that we see that's all right, I'll read the card first. You get +1 skill value while resolving spell events. During a skill test on a spell event, take up to 3 horror. For each horror taken, reveal an additional chaos token for this test. Choose one of the revealed tokens and resolve and ignore the rest. I will say that this is nice that we got some Agnes support for her ability, and we haven't seen that in a very long time. With that said, I think this one for me personally feels very much kind of like sorcerer only. But like you also can see like a little bit of the cross for like Kelvin Wright. This allows for him to get stronger, right? If you want to be doing the investigate thing on like on your control, and then you can like heal it away with other things.
I wish this wasn't spell events. I mean, that's so restrictive.
I agree. And that's like kind of like the issue that I think that was very fairly pointed out, is that this one feels it's a mystic card, right? It just feels very locked in because of that.
So how many spell events are there outside of mystics? I mean, you mentioned Calvin, like we're taking spirit cards maybe that are spells outside of class, because in Survivor...
Let's find out. With the power of Arkham Build, it's so easy to do this.
So there's the Bless one I think you could do.
Spell. And then let's look at not mystic. Sorry, not mystic. Sister Mary can go ham with absolution.
Is that a skill test?
No, it's not a skill test. Yeah, it has to be a skill test too. I mean, there is Blood Eclipse.
Yeah.
So you can take damage and horror as Kelvin. Just charge yourself up.
Yeah, Radiant Smite is the one I was thinking of before. I don't know. I don't like this card.
No, it's all pretty much in the other ones. It's all like, yeah, there's not much.
Yeah, and this is also another one where I feel like the token manipulation shouldn't be locked into these guys, but I guess it is here. Like, I would love to do this in Jim, right? Jim would love the hell out of this card.
Yeah.
Taking the horror isn't a big deal.
Parallel Jim can play it.
Parallel Jim is cursed. Okay.
I actually, I don't see Parallel Zoe. Is she blessed? Parallel Zoe is not blessed, so she can't play this.
She's just still Hunter or something?
She's still a Believer, yeah, Hunter Believer.
Hunter Believer. Yeah, Believer and Blessed I get confused sometimes, because Father Mateo also not blessed.
No, well, it's because it's not God, it's someone else. That's right. The scary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that the Forbidden Sutra is just too mystic focused. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed by this, because I could see this being very playable in a lot of particular investigators, but those three traits ain't it for me. Other than Agnes, exactly. But it's like, okay, great. Why are we doing this just for her?
Yeah. But I guess this is kind of, to me, like, I'm curious to see this one over time. If it's like the library pass, like if we discover something that makes it so it's not just Agnes, because I think if this was a mystic card, like I think other people would play it, but most people would like, we kind of already have that in the form of ritual candles. It's kind of the same card, right? Like makes your spell events better. I don't know. All right, I'm excited to talk about captivating performance, because we also know it works the way that it works favorably for the card design, which is really nice that they ruled it that way.
Yeah, so this is in the player card insert, and they said, I have it somewhere. I can read it if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, what kind of additional actions does captivating performance allow me to perform? They tell us what the action types are. We already know that. In order to trigger the card, you have to have performed 3 different actions in a row from that list. For example, if you play a card, gain a resource, and take a fight action, you have satisfied the triggering condition, and you can use it to take a 4th action, which cannot be used to play a card, gain a resource, or fight. Okay, but if one of your actions involves multiple action types, such as playing a card with a bold fight action designator, you choose which action type is contributing to captivating performance's triggering condition. For example, if you play improvised weapon, which is fight and play, upon playing the card, you choose if it counts as a play action or a fight action for the purposes of captivating performance. And I assume that's true for the resolution as well, that you can choose the type of action you do can be just something different. It can still count. Something that has multiple action types can count for the one you want.
Yeah. And this is something that is very exciting, because I remember saying when Eric and I were first talking about it, I could see this working very well for flex mystics, right? Where like you can like use your shriveling or your wither, right? Attack an enemy for fight, then use like your 6 cents to activate investigate, and then use your 6 cents again and use it as the activate mode, and then just draw a card, right? Like, that's a really nice line for mystics to be able to have this thing. So like, I feel like this one is like, yes, sorcerer to me feels not so much. I mean, I guess like the idea is that you're playing the guitar with magic, right? Like you're using magic to captivate.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really nice thing for this card. And I think also beyond that, for like Dreamer, we have Lucius and like Patrice for Performer, and then also Lola. I think that like this card benefits flexes a lot, and I think this is a very nice specialist card because of that. Like, to me, this feels like a specialist flex card, you know?
I agree. I think this is a good one, because we know it works well now, but also the number of investigators. I mean, it's only, what's it, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 11 investigators. Not a huge number, but they're not all mystics. They're mostly mystics, but even so, I think it gives those mystics a niche, I guess. So
yeah,
cool. I'm cool with this.
Yeah, and I think I think most of them are it's so many mystics too, just because sorcerer again just like makes so many mystics.
Yeah, sorcerer seems to be a lot of them. So
yeah.
Well, all right.
All right, the Cowl of Sekhmet. So this is one that wasn't revealed before, so I haven't really thought too much about this one. When you enter location, exhaust Cowl of Sekhmet. So this is believer, chosen, and cultist only. I mean, that makes sense. Cultists wear robes, right? Until the end of the round, each non-elite enemy at the location cannot engage you and cannot deal damage to those enemies.
Sure.
So this is very interesting, because if I don't know anything about this card, if someone read that effect to me, I would say Mystic or Rogue. So I'm actually curious now to see.
It's Mystic and some Guardians, right?
Yeah, it's Mystics, Guardians, and also Stella Clark is there too, because she's chosen.
Oh, chosen, right.
I mean, that's not bad for Stella Clark. She can just be like, help me. So do you know what this card also kind of reminds me of? And now that like Sister Mary and Zoe kind of fit a bit, it reminds me of Safeguard. But like, you don't save the action. It's just like, I'm moving in, and then you're going to deal with this enemy.
It reminds me of the Mystic spell that evades.
Ethereal, the ghost
form,
one.
Yeah.
We turn into the ghost, ethereal form. Yeah.
It feels like that, but without taking the action. So, like, I think if you can take advantage of that ability often, then seems pretty good.
I think
for those investigators, I think, yeah, if you're just like, I'm going to go in and get clues or something, then this seems like a good addition.
I could see you doing some things, though. I think this could be a very interesting, like I'm looking at, like, Lily Chen, where, like, you move in and, like, you could just do some things. I just feel something brewing. I don't know what it is to put into words yet, but I think the problem is this card doesn't actually do anything on its own. But I feel like the what you build around it is going to be good. Like, how can you take advantage of enemies at your location that you're not having to interact with until you want to, right?
Yeah,
but it also blocks Hunter.
And so the enemies at that location, is it the ones that are at the location when you enter it, or is it the ones that could enter it during the rest of the round?
No, so that's what I mean. Like, there's a Hunter enemy, you move into that location, and you basically freeze that enemy for a turn, right? Because as long as no one else comes with you, that Hunter enemy is going to not move because you're at its location, right? And then it's just going to engage you at the end of the round, and you're like, okay, I basically gave myself a whole turn to deal with it. I think this card can be pretty good because it is like enemy management. But I do think that it doesn't read that exciting, and it doesn't feel that specialized because of that. But I think this card actually is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I just need to think about, like, what is my plan with this card? Am I doing something else kind of neat with it? Then great. If I'm just throwing it into maybe this will be good in a scenario that's tough, maybe.
But I mean, I think in all fairness, like, what if this does end up, like, this actually is a pretty solid enemy management tool, so maybe this is probably good that not everyone can take it, right? Like, maybe this falls into that space of specialist design. I'm curious to see, right? Yep. Because it is, I'm with you, Ezekiel, that just, like, if you could just keep an enemy frozen, like, that is a pretty good effect.
You don't have to kill them until... Yeah, so this is, like, another good flex card, then.
Yeah.
I think I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, because I feel like if every Guardian could take this, I'd probably just end up taking in a lot of Guardians. It soaks 2 horror, takes up a slot that I'm not using for Bandolier anymore because you can just like do so many other things with your weapons. That's interesting. I'm curious because I feel like this might fall into like the Pathfinder type thing, where if this was just a Guardian card, we'd be like, I have to play this in every Guardian because it's just gonna like make its way in. I'm curious.
So just to make sure that no one else goes in the location too, because otherwise the enemies will engage them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, really good for solo play too, right?
Solo, like for solo, it seems like a nice thing. Yeah,
because you can also just like move through a location with an enemy.
And you just keep going.
Dakota, we've already seen in action on this channel. Actually, she's good. I think again that I'm glad she's not like. Yes, she would be good as a Guardian enemy, sorry, our Guardian ally. But like even just the fact that Tony can take her, I think is really nice. Like just that little change.
What did you play her in?
You played her.
Oh, this has been on this channel? Okay, yeah.
Well, it's been on the stream. It's been on the stream. It hasn't gone live
That's right, I forgot. You're right. I did play her in Zoe, and it was like extremely good in 4-player. I think I used like almost every round. It was crazy.
Yeah. And there's actually so many viable investigators that can use this that are, if this was just a Guardian card, like it wouldn't be good. Michael McGlenn, Monterey Jack Parallel, Luke Robinson, Joe Diamond, Trish Scarborough, Tony Morgan, Ursula Downs, right? Like maybe not Ursula, but like
I also feel like this one, just like we'll see in a few, it feels very flavorful about which traits it is and the effect. And I don't feel that way about some of the other ones here. Like these are exactly the investigators who I think should have this ability. Yes,
I agree. And also, yeah, because she kind of also feels like specialized, like Dakota herself. She's like, I'm a specialist.
All right.
Nose to the Grindstone. I think this card is actually also pretty good. I've had multiple different deck ideas show up by it, and I think that this one is a nice specialist card as well.
I don't have anything else to say about this. I mean, this is the, oh no, Wilson can't take Crafty. I guess this works.
Yes. And then, like, I think it, like, fits in, like, anyone else who has, like, low skill value. Like, Ashcan Pete, Kelvin Wright, Bob Jenkins, George Barnaby, Jenny Barnes, right? Wow, the list that the players, investigators who can take this one is the biggest I've seen. It's so many people.
They've gone hard on tools in the last couple of expansions, so...
Yeah, because we've had 2 investigators that are tools for deck building.
And then this, the player cards in this one, there's a lot of tools. All those Survivor hand slot ones are tools.
Yeah.
So, seems good to me.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think this one's very nice, and the list is huge. Like this one is a very one that shows that again, like the open can hit a lot of people. How many? That's a great question. How many triggers do you need to have Dakota feel worth it? Honestly, if I trigger her like once and it's from a connecting location, it's probably good enough.
She's I agree. Got good soak, and you got the +1 to 2 relevant stats probably. Yeah.
Sound support. We talked about this one a little bit earlier with Carolyn and Vincent, but I think the more interesting thing is all the other people that this works for. So like Carson, Hank, I mean like even Lily, Min, right? Like I feel like this opens up some options for this, which I think is really interesting.
I played this in Hank, and I thought it was really good. I think you can run with just one of them in it. I mean, not to open up old wounds, but it's kind of the thing you wanted to do with Hank in the first place.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. No, I mean, as it should have been. But yeah, no, I think that this one, I think overall is probably going to be successful in the long term as well.
I wonder. I mean, again, the medic thing was probably like, I guess we got to slap it on somewhere, but it makes sense in assistant and warden a lot.
Yes, and I think even with medic, it will see play in Vincent and Carolyn. Again, I think because like support having redundancy is good, and this card says the archetype's name on it, so you have to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hard on it earlier, but the reality is you're right, and sometimes this is just like running Peter Sylvester in Agnes, where you use that to put the horror or damage in this case on something that isn't really used for your ability. So
yeah. And then it's just also still just it's I think very much so. It just heals, All right, speaking of heals, 2 cost, 5 experience on their heals. Detective, Hunter, Police, Reporter deck only. This is the one of the 2 with 4. The other one is the clay skill. That one also had 4 on it.
Okay.
Limit 1 per investigator, 5 leads. After you enter a location with 1 or more enemies, spend 1 lead and exhaust on their heals. Either discover 1 clear location or deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about this one a bit earlier, but I had a video on my channel some time ago about like what is a new rogue event that gets clues that I'd like to see, and I actually came up with this card. It wasn't an asset, of course, but it was the same idea of like I would like there to be a new card that is about going after an enemy, and then you get something like a clue because you did so, because that feels like a Tony Morgan type of card. And lo and behold, we have that, but across a few other different traits too. I think this is a great flavor win, and I want to play it. I think it's good. It's 5 XP, and it's hard to find, but I think the effect is good.
It's 5 XP, but it's a little bit more than half at much lower cost of agency backup.
True.
So like I think it's I mean there's a lot of people too that I play this in. Like Joey, Tony, Michael McGlenn. I play this in Joe as well. Roland. Like being able to like grab things. I guess also like with Trish, you could make a case for it too. Just like grab 5 clues, get like 2 clues. It's like 5 deductions.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like on the trail, but as an asset here, but even more open because you don't have to play the card. You at the right time, you can put it into play earlier, and you can do it in these other classes, right? Like Rogue, that was sort of the point, is it kind of needs something like this.
And then even like Zoe, you just like engage an enemy, deal 2 damage to them when you have your cross out. Like, yeah, I think this one also, it's very open too. I think that's a nice one. So what I'm basically learning is that there are more successes, there's more hits than misses for this.
Yes.
Is what as now we've been going through, I'm like, okay, these actually are pretty open, which is nice. As we've been going through.
I still stand by what we said earlier about, I think you pick these cards as I want to build around them.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yeah. Or what I said, where you're like, I just got 4 XP, I don't know what to put in my deck. Oh, this is a card I can play, I'll put it in here. You know, like I feel like that. Like if I had 5 XP and I was Trish and I didn't know what to put in, I'd be like, yeah, I'll put it on the heels. I'll get 2 clues. Like I'll get 5 deductions for 2 resources and an action, right? I'll do that.
Yeah. What else do you need in this game, right? I mean, seems good.
Also, this is like, when is the next time you might run a maximum difficulty campaign? What do you mean by maximum difficulty? Because I've only ever played on standard, so right now that is my maximum difficulty. All right, trench armor. This is the one that Trish can take this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is very good in her for this too. Like, it basically just means she can go off on her own, and like, it solves her weakness. It's like another tool she has for that kind of thing. As we learned from the Prophesy Profana, ignoring attack of opportunities is really good, and even just one of them is kind of all right. Notably, this one does feel like a Guardian card, because most of the people who can play it are Guardians. But I think this one does fit in the space of who are the people that aren't Guardians that can take this. And I think Trish is a reason that this card feels specialist, because like it makes it at least unique enough for her. At least going with that thesis that we were talking about earlier, or that I was talking about earlier.
You should put this in your Dexter deck, in that paradoxical run we're doing.
I should, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also, like you say, you put 2 on it, get rid of it with Dexter. I think it's very... Yeah. I mean, also, like, for Dexter... I mean, a Dexter can magic out things anyway, but, like, being able to just play an asset to get a weapon out is kind of nice.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, like, level 0 Alice Luxley. The upgrade version kind of does this a bit, but just that Guardian who wants to play things out and not worry about attacks opportunity seems okay.
Yep.
Isn't it interesting that we have 2 3 XP body slot things that are kind of like they're
kind of like enemy management a bit.
They are, and they're kind of like a weirdo version of the bulletproof vest Elder Sign amulet in the core.
That is very interesting. Huh. I never looked at it like that way, but that is a very neat observation. Storm Ruler. Bless Clairvoyance, Sorcerer deck only. It's a 3-cost 4 experience. Fight, add your brain value, your skill value for this attack. If it's successful, addition to standard damage, make exhaust to deal 1 damage to an enemy for each skull, cultist, tablet, and squid symbol revealed this attack to a maximum of 3 additional damage. So this one's different than the other ones, I think, because this is actually just like a build around on the tin. It's like I'm a seal deck, like I'm a reveal token deck. So I think this one is kind of like a little bit different than the other ones we've seen. It kind of reminds me a bit of the library pass, right? Where it's like it's so hyper focused. But then I'm looking at who can play it, and Sister Mary, she has blessed symbols, and she also has like token reveal mystic stuff. So like I think it also kind of fits.
I think this is like a interesting card. I've thought about it a bit, not enough to like say too much, but how often does this proc? Because it has to be those symbols, and you have to reveal them, so you can't like cancel them or something with olive. You have to use olive and then choose two. I mean, if you're getting more than 1 damage or 2 damage, I guess you have to choose 2 of those to reveal or resolve. I don't know. I this is just kind of an odd weapon for me until I see more support, right?
Oh, there's the new one, that the ally that just came out. The skull one, the draw the token that you want. Yeah,
but that still just does 2 damage, right? 1 for your fight and this 1 damage to anything. Anyway, that's a different story.
but it is like it is adding the skills together, right? It's not like you're using your brain and not getting a bonus. So like the idea is that like I think with olive and token pulling effects, you can like do like survive through them. Because like they all have high brain, and they all have, apart from Gloria Goldberg, pretty competent fist scores too. I mean, this is like honestly, to me, this is the line of what I want compared to things like Cyclopean Hammer. Right, where it's like you have to work for it to get to those high highs and not just be able to hit for like 3 damage.
Yeah. I mean, but it exhausts too, right? Okay, sorry. We'll get off the power level of the card. So for as far as like who can take it, feels like there's another one of these sorcerer ones. They really needed to fit this into the token manipulation decks, but only some of them.
Yeah,
I think this could
strange.
Just be a mystic card.
This one's could definitely have just been a mystic card. Like I said, Sister Mary with blessed tokens, like she like wants to pull a lot of tokens. She's token fishing. But that one's like, and even Wendy Adams, the parallel version, you're using your cursed and blessed stuff anyway. So it's basically all mystic.
Yeah.
Does it work with the rod? You know it.
Yeah. Maybe that's the way to do it.
I guess Jacqueline as well. Like with Jacqueline, you can like hit it pretty reliably as well for that. Yeah, but it's still this is a mystic card for sure. And then we already talked about the Mauser as well. I think this one is also, I think, overall very successful for multiple reasons that we've been covering through this whole video.
All right, let's move on to the events and skills. We only have
little batch.
9 left.
Okay. Name your price. This is just a rogue card.
Yeah.
Like even the classes on this, the traits on this that can take it.
It's Nathaniel Cho, right?
Yeah, he's the only other one, and he ain't affording this anytime soon.
Yeah, this is a really fun card. I wish it were a slightly different card, but yeah, it needs to be rogue. Like, what's the point of it being socialite and criminal otherwise?
Yeah, this is basically just a rogue one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I should take it as 2.
Boom. 3 cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. All that money goes to something. Anyway. Yeah.
True Awakening. So this card is so open that like I'm glad that it's limited, you know? Like this is an example of one of those cards that if this was just like a generic card, you'd be like, well, I'm gonna have to like potentially look at this option, right? But I mean, there's a lot of people who can take it. But what's nice?
Anything in common?
They have anything in common? Yes. I'll tell you what it is. They are Guardian, Survivor, and Mystic. They like drawing cards, and they don't have like Seeker card draw to them.
Okay. Yeah. I'm on board.
Because to me, I'll be honest, you always got to take draw 2 on this. Like this is draw 2 and then do one other thing.
Probably discover a clue most of the time.
Yeah.
Can Calvin get this?
Yes, he can.
He's a drifter. Okay. more fuel for that Mimi boxing gloves Calvin deck. Okay.
Yeah. No, but I think this one is this is one I'm glad that's specialized, because I think it being limited is nice.
Yeah, it's trying to restrict who can take it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Motivational speech. We talked a bit about this one too. I think it has reasons for it to be where it is.
I can't wait to play this. I think it's a really cool card. And
yep.
I've already talked about it enough that we can move on.
I mean, yeah, if you just get someone to trigger, like get an agency backup into play, like it's over.
Yeah, you don't even have to be the one who has the card in your deck. You can be Civic Performer, Socialite, whatever, and someone else has the agency backup. Just be like, hold up 7 fingers to your teammates. That's go time.
Yep. Blood of Kinyan. I think this one, again, reads very mystic on the tin, as I was talking earlier. We mentioned this one earlier in the video as well. But I think that this one is actually, it's success in the place where you don't expect it to be, in the form of Michael McGlenn and Tony Morgan. I guess you could even say Zoe, but I think rogues have easier ways of getting rid of weapons from their hands because of Joey the Rat. I also like with Michael McGlenn, you hold it for... if you're playing Joey the Rat to sell your items, but also you have to get rid of all your weapons because they got confiscated, and then you're like, well, you know what, Kappas? I got snake hands. And then, you kill them with that.
So my slight nitpick here is, like, is Sorcerer always paired with Clairvoyant? Not always. Not always.
No, even in Dimensional Vortex it isn't.
Okay.
But there is a lot of cross between those ones. It's because they're both mystics too, right?
Yeah, and that's the tough part here, is having too much overlap where you're like, okay, these things go together. Maybe that's okay, maybe not. But it looks like Sorcerer goes with Performer.
Which are also usually, yeah, which also are very mystic.
Yeah, okay. Cool card. I haven't heard you talk about Dimensional Vortex yet.
This is like the super cutting distraction, right? 2 cost, 5 experience, Performer, Sorcerer deck only, fast. Play when the investigation phase begins. Choose a location, set aside each non-elite enemy at the chosen location. Something around there, not at any location, are immune to player card effects. When the round ends, each of those enemies... so, I mean, it's a powerful effect. Let's see who can take it.
And there's something in the FAQ about this as well.
Yeah, it's the question I asked, where it's like, what if the location leaves play?
That's right. And the answer is... if the location is no longer in play, those enemies are discarded to their respective discard piles instead. They are not defeated.
Good.
Makes sense.
Good. Yeah. All right, so this is all Mystics. And then Patrice. Okay. And Lola, of course. Lola can take this. So this one I feel like is also like a Mystic problem, where like this is mostly just Mystics, Performer, and Sorcerer. I mean, if we get another Performer that's not a Mystic... to me, this is kind of like the, to go back to what we were talking about ages ago in this video, this is kind of the, Marie and, Finn problem, right? Where they're not actually 05 in their class. Marie mostly is, because hers are like spells, but it's like that same kind of thing where it's like, I wish that kind of also filled those gaps some more, But I think it's a powerful effect, and this is not really a build around. You just take it because it's a strong card in an enemy-heavy campaign.
That would be good in a lot of campaigns, scenarios that I can think of.
Yes.
But yeah, this one just feels like they could have used this space for something else, and this could have been a Mystic card.
Yep.
It's still a spell. I think Blood of Kinyan is different.
I think so.
That one's a little different.
Yeah, and it's just because, like, it has that hunter, right? Like, if this just had, like, a non, like...
Mystic.
I mean, yeah. Like, this could have been, like, Mystic, and they could have cut, like, I don't know, that Arcane Mark or whatever it is. That 10 experience card.
Okay, I'll give another reason why, though. I think because there's no skill test on this, and the effect is very open.
So they wanted to just, like, they wanted to limit it that way. I can get behind that. It is fast as well. You blink and you miss it for the fast on this card.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's fair.
Okay.
All right. And then the skills, which I think are actually all pretty successful. Dreams of Clay. So this one has 4.
So many.
Artist, Clairvoyant, Dreamer, Performer. Commit only to a skill test on a treachery. If the skill test is successful, put Dreams of Clay into your play area instead of discarding it. As a reaction, when you draw a non-peril treachery in the counter deck, remove Dreams of Clay from the game, cancel its revelation effect, and discard it. It's ward of protection. That's right.
So it's a kind of a weird fool me once, right? Because you could use it on anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably good to have these effects limited. And I think like every one of these investigators like would have a reason to take it. And it's not like limited to just like what this does is it kind of gives like a ward of protection or a fool me once effect outside of mystics in the form of Lucius, Patrice, Safina.
That's true. Well, all of them do sort of have, maybe not Lucius, but the other ones actually do have some mystic access.
They do, yeah.
So it kind of has
Lola as well. Lola as well, yeah.
Lola
but she also has
right.
mystic, yeah. But it's like a restricted form. But this one also, it's a little bit more like focused because you can like use it on like a locked door, and then just have it solve any treachery in the future. Well, non-peril treachery.
That's interesting that it has to be non-peril. Why is that? It's something you drew.
I mean, honestly, I feel like just for the spice.
Yeah, okay.
Just for the spice of it, you know?
I would love to put this into a Patrice deck. I think that seems fun.
Yes, and it's because, like, yeah, like it's one of those things that if you don't draw a Treachery Mythos card, there might be one on the board, right? And then this one is only one experience. It's not bad to, like, just discard to your Violin either.
Yeah.
All right, Inquisitive. Let me just pull it up so I can see who can play it.
Okay, so this is Seeker-ish.
This is for the yeah. So it's an innate Assistant Miskatonic Scholar deck only. If the skill is successful, the performing investigator may succeed by up to 2 more or down to 2 less to a minimum of 0. So I guess the question is, do you play this outside of the precise science archetype?
Can anyone take those cards outside of these investigators anyway?
Well, that's the thing. There's Rita and Hank and Carson.
Carson with Katana. There you go.
Carson with Katana? I guess Rita has, like, if she wants to, like, protect a Pilfer 3. I don't know if I'd want to take this in Hank.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't play it in anyone other than the Seekers.
Yep. And I think that's just because, like, unlike assets, skills are very temporary, right? So, I think the design is good, but this one probably could have been a Seeker card for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even talks about Dr. Milan Christopher on here.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Hank's like, who?
Yeah. Who's that? Speaking of, Double Down is also a rogue card.
Yeah.
I love the design as a rogue card, but I think that this is not a good specialist card.
No, this is great in Winifred. I'd love to play it in her.
She can't either. So I guess that's maybe why they did it, but I don't think so. I think it's just like
criminal?
She is. She is a criminal. She's just a criminal.
Okay.
She's just a criminal. That's all she's got going for her. Rough.
She stole an airplane.
All right. I mean, yes, yeah. So then that goes to my point. Yeah, this is pretty much just a rogue card.
This is a rogue card, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, Winifred's not a criminal, of course, because she's a performer. She does tricks in the air or something like that. And I think that's kind of like, I imagine, at least for the next 3 cycles, we're going to see a bit more through line for how they trait the investigators, I think. I think we're going to see like the ramifications for that going forward for a bit, not so much looking backwards.
Speaking of this card,
sorry, you go.
Do you think that they should retrait Jenny as socialite since they gave parallel Jenny socialite?
Yes, so that's what I was going to say. I feel like on the next taboo, we're going to get some traits added to investigators. I think that's going to happen for sure.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I would just play it that way now. I mean, name your price. That one should be Jenny all the way. Yeah,
I honestly actually feel like that couldn't even like not be taboo. That could be like errata. I think that'd be okay. And lastly, I think we have, in my opinion, the most successful specialist card.
Yep.
In terms of Memories of Another Life. Because one, it's a very explosive effect, and I feel like it's pretty relevant in terms of, like, again, we have the sorcerer problem where a lot of mystics get this, but there are enough outside of that it fits, But the mechanics of this card are very mystic, as we saw from Transfiguration.
Yeah. And it's not something that you could easily replace with something in class, other than maybe Transfiguration, but not exactly, right? That's a different card. But it has that unparalleled effect, which I wish they leaned into a little bit more with these, because then I would feel a little bit more like these are specialist cards. So this one, 100%, this is the best one in the set.
Yeah, yeah. Is Memories just an auto-include if you can play and afford it? No, I don't think anything's really an auto-include unless it is economy. And, like, this can be economy, but, like, if I had to pay 5 experience to, like, make my deck better as opposed to just, like, generic toolbox, I think not so much. I think it's a great card, but I don't think it's an auto-include. Yeah, because it's 5 XP. Like, that kills a lot of auto-include nature for it. For me, an auto-include is like level 0. That's where like auto-includes exist.
Yeah, you'd have to have a lot of, I don't know. I mean, you could begin your campaign in Father Mateo with this, I suppose. But you could also do other things.
All right, here's the challenge. You take Aesthetic with Memories of Another Life as your only 10 XP and see if you can do it.
That's sick. I like that.
I think that's a fun challenge idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And then also like the Lucius Sister Mary Zoe. I think there's a lot of fun like side ones for this one. I think it's a great card.
I'm gonna be a hater and say that I think they gave too many Dreamer traits out to these just because of Lucius in the box.
Yep, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Because they have what? Let's put all the Dreamers here.
Sure. It might not even be that many. It just feels like it.
It'd be funny. It'd be funny. There's just Is it really just those?
I mean, it might be. It's just like I feel like every time
it does feel like a lot, but it is actually just those ones.
All right. Sorry, Lucius.
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness, we did just look at 2 of them like pretty much back to back. So
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that overall going through this, there are some misses, but I think that I am curious to see how these evolve, because I do think that they are good, and as the legacy card pool grows, they're just gonna get better.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I've changed my mind a bit since the beginning of the video, which is a good thing because we talked about these things and I thought about them more. I still think that they don't feel like the label specialist. That's just not how I would have designed these.
Yeah.
But I agree that there are more hits than overall misses. I think the overall discussion of like, are they overcosted? Probably, but
yes,
they don't feel so awful. Like I will play these cards.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a pretty fair argument today that just like generally, as I said earlier, I've said it a lot. I really like this new design team. I think their philosophy for card balance is very good. People would disagree with that because they want flashier, stronger effects. But I do think that overall, it's healthier because of that. And then
we're so used to having like a lot of stuff being able to be handed to us on a silver platter at like level 0, 1, or 2, right?
Yep.
And it takes a lot for us to say, put one of these expensive cards in the deck when we're so used to not needing to even do that to make headway in a campaign. But things may be changing.
And then a final point of discussion at the end of the video. Do we agree that the specialist mechanic is of its time, considering it's probably designed in before the limited environment times? And we maybe wouldn't get this mechanic during the limited environment because we maybe wouldn't, because the mechanic is very based on having a bigger investigator pool. Specialist mechanic accidentally is a fitting send-off to the Legacy era. I don't agree. Mostly because I feel like as soon as you start restricting your design and mechanics around such limitations, it will actually be a bigger problem for your ability to design. I think that specialist cards could come back. I don't think they're going to come back at this scope, but I think specialist cards could have happened at any time, and I wouldn't be surprised if they happen again.
I would say that they would look different in the future. This seems like a fitting send-off to the idea of we have, 50, 60 investigators, let's give them all a trait in this box. And I don't think they would have done that in a future set just because there wouldn't have been as many investigators to give traits to. But I think they still could do the idea. Yeah.
And also, I think the designers know that discussion is not changing. They're not expecting us to just, put Rex Murphy in a box and never look at him again. I just think the only thing that's changing is that, like, I think a big thing, for example, is we're going to probably see more, for example, practice skills that are powerful, right? We're going to see cards in Survivor that care about dealing horror, because Peter Sylvester might not be real, right? Like about taking horror for yourself. Like, it's going to be one of those things where it's like it becomes a cost. And it's not like before they were like, we can't do that because of Peter Sylvester. That's a lot different than we can't work with a mechanic, right? So I don't think that, I think that was just literally a coincidence.
Yeah. Did you notice that there's 4 innate skills here that Silas cannot take?
Yeah. Don't get me started.
What does Silas take from this card pool, from the specialist cards?
He's a drifter. Yeah, he's a drifter, so he gets like all the drifter shit. So he gets like a free move, which is really relevant with the new Survivor stuff that came out. And he gets the True Awakening.
True Awakening.
And then he also gets
the
Nose of the Grindstone. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, I can see them putting more traits, especially on the one trait in Investigator, right? Like, I could see like him getting Hunter, right? And then suddenly that or like Wayfarer, right? And suddenly that opens up one of all those things. So like, that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is I hope that happens, and I hope they do it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining me on that, Daniel. That was a fun conversation, and I'm excited because I'm putting a little pin in this, because in a year or two, I want to revisit this conversation with the exact intention of how have these changed over the year or two. Because I think, like,
Archibald McVeigh, man, we missed our evaluation on it.
Yeah, it's like
specialist card. Yeah, super powerful.
Or it's like, we need to taboo him so he's playable. Yeah, yeah. It is. I'm very curious, because I do think that people are quick to just like dismiss something or say something or like accept something without actually like putting things into practice. And I do think that we're going to see some cool discoveries to make from the majority of these cards. Not all of them, but I do think the majority.
Yeah. I'll just close by saying the one that, now looking at them all again, the one that makes me angry is just Forbidden Sutra.
I agree.
That's the only one.
I think that's good. Even like Archibald, I think like he's fricked up a little bit, at least on the tin. But like, I already am now like, yeah, I could see Library passing an emergency cache every turn, right? Or like, and like those things. And just like, I need 3 resources this turn. Let's make it fast, right? I'm curious. But yeah, I think Forbidden Sutra is the one that's, unfortunately, I agree. If I had to put this in like, I enjoy or I don't enjoy, this would be in the don't enjoy.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. There's my Patreon thing. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing. Let me know in the comments if you do want to support a little bit. But what do you think of specialist cards? Let us know. And also go check out Daniel's channel. There's going to be a link in the video description. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.